I'd like to share the do's and don'ts when it comes to preparing a 3-course meal, and I'd like to start with the do's. First thing you need to do is to plan your menu.
Try to do as much stuff in advance as possible. And yeah, try not to leave too much for the last minute because that's disastrous. Nobody wants to spend the entire dinner party in the kitchen. You also want to, visit with your guests and enjoy the evening.
Make sure that the story speaks to each other. If you are going to have a starter, let's say it's a heavy starter, if it's a heavy starter, ensure that your dessert is nice and light. Otherwise, it becomes too much.
Well, for me, the most important thing is to get a hold of the best product that you can get possible. And obviously, you have to now farm seasonally. Because I believe if you have a good product, 70% of your job is done as a chef. I mean, the other 30% is just to have knowledge and respect on how you treat it.
A do is to always cook with love. Cook with love and from the heart, because if you don't, you give people heartburn.
One of the things I think you should never serve, especially let's say if you are on location and you're not at home, real life story, is anything that melts. And you don't have an access to a fridge, or the fridge, let's say it just breaks down and you don't have an option of having something to chill it with. Things like a cheesecake, baked cheesecake is a very great one. Brownies, anything baked, I tend to go more bake. And then anything that is fridge based, then I tend to steer clear from.
Well, what you should never serve me personally is anything to do with bananas. They're the most offensive fruit ever. They overpower everything you put them in. Also, they can be really slimy. So for me, avoid bananas from the menu at all costs. Please, thank you.
Never serve green peppers, just avoid them at all costs. And don't serve anything out of a tin.
I think people should not try to impress too much because a lot of people and a lot of chefs, they use products and beautiful ingredients to actually showcase themselves and show off themselves, where I believe it should be the other way around, where the chef actually uses themselves, or the cook uses themselves to elevate the product. Because at the end of the day, our job, it really is to be an interpreter between nature and human beings.
Some of the most lovely icebreakers on the table is having little things, that keep your guests guessing or just keep them involved. You could take, for instance, a variation of 3 things, and then without you telling them what it is, you let them guess what that is, because it creates conversation. It makes things, really, really lovely and different, especially if you have some guests that you do not know personally. So it starts the conversations going.
A welcome drink is always something, like a good toast in the beginning of the dinner to make everyone feel comfortable and really welcome. I think that's a really great icebreaker. I also love, like random games. Even if you play sort of 30 seconds quickly before dinner while you're having like your snacks and canapes or whatever, I think that's also just to get everyone comfortable and loose and, easy for the evening.
I guess the first thing people would say was, interesting flavors. I guess that's the icebreaker. Or this sounds delicious, or this looks delicious, or tastes wonderful. But on the negative side, you can also say, I don't like this, and then that's an icebreaker, and then everyone is sharing how they're finding faults in the dish itself.
If I had to prepare a 3-course meal, it would probably have a lot of seafood in it. I grew up on the coast, so seafood is pretty much, what I love to cook. Very passionate about it. The mussels are local, they're amazing, that we get on the south coast. Something really light and fresh.
A starter for me, something with bread, maybe like a baked camembert with bread, so you can dip and it's oozy, etc. Or cheese board. I love cheese, the theme in my life. So cheese maybe to start.
I would say my first course needs to be a soup. I love broth soups with lots of herbs and a touch of spices as well. Maybe some noodles inside as well is my favorite.
I'll probably take something that my mother really loved, like umfino or like beetroot, and then, like I do in my restaurant, add a goat's cheese to it, crust it with pistachio nuts on either side, make it into a cannelloni, and have it a mustard and citrus dressing with it, maybe as a starter, with lots of leaves around it.
A spread of curry, so butter chicken, lamb curry, maybe beef korma or something like that. So, you know, serve family style in big bowls, lots of rice, naan bread, papadoms, you know, vibe. Also my Durbanite sense coming out there, you know, I love a curry.
And then my favorite is a fish braai. Like super simple, lots of butter, little bit of garlic, fresh fish on the fire. That's kind of, yeah, my thing.
I would say my main course has to have a lamb in it. It's my favorite type of meat.
I know it's a little old school when it comes to having like a big piece of meat, whatever it is, that meat, but with lots of vegetables in it. You know, that speaks for me to nostalgia. But I also believe in elevating, so it will not just be like a normal roast chicken. It will have to something that's lovely and elevated, either through technique or the method in which I'm using, or just making sure that there's lots of beautiful things around it.
And then for dessert, something that can sit in the fridge, or even just, you know, something like a parfait or like a frozen semi-Fredo, something like that. You can prepare in advance. It's still impressive. You slice it, everyone's like, ooh, and it tastes really good and it's really refreshing.
I'd definitely go for something that's chocolate and fruit based.
One of my favorite desserts is an eaten mess. I love meringues. I take some cream, but I mix it with a little bit of cream cheese with lots of lemon in it because I love sweet and sour. I've got a berry coulis with it, with a shot of ginger for a kick, and I layer those with the meringue. It's really lovely.
Tiramisu is a big thing in our household. It's really rich, so you have a light starter, light main, rich dessert, and probably a whiskey.